Good evening. Welcome to our 2020 Public Information Meeting for the Comprehensive Plan. My name is Mark Valentine. I'm the town engineer. With me tonight is Jim Costello, Director of Developmental Services, Zach Nersinger, our town planner. Our job tonight is to facilitate the meeting, allow the public to come up, issue your comments. This is not going to be a debate back and forth. We're just accepting comments this evening, taking them in. We have audience members here tonight as members of the committee. It is being videotaped, so those that could not make it tonight will be able to witness it as well. We'll also keep the comments open after this. So we'll try to keep comments to 5 minutes just so everybody has an opportunity to come up and speak. We'll also have everybody at least one opportunity to come up before somebody comes back to speak again. We have sign-in sheets at the entrance. We'll be collecting those throughout just to kind of have a little bit of order to start out with. If you don't sign up, it doesn't prohibit you from speaking. We'll just open it up more towards the end. So with that, turn it over to Zach. He'll give a little background, history of kind of what the committee's done to date, kind of where we are, and kind of where we're looking to move.
Thank you.
Zach.
I'd love to. So this evening, our committee, they began their work last year. On September 11, 2018 was actually the first meeting that we had with the committee, and since then we had several productive meetings. We had educational meetings with the committee to kind of give them an overview of how the town operates, what is the purpose of comprehensive plans, what goals have been accomplished since the 2010 comprehensive plan, basically what is in this big manual that we have here. We also had a lot of guests come into the committee meetings, such as local farmers, to understand recent changes in ag and markets. Obviously, a lot of that has been going on with the state in the recent years. We also had a couple professional planners come in, one such as Matt Engels of Engels Planning and Design, to discuss critical changes in demographics, housing preferences, and retail trends in rural suburban settings, such as the town of Penfield. Also, in the spring of 2019, the committee went on a site tour with the town staff to review various properties of interest that those property owners have expressed that they would like to be considered to be rezoned for certain uses based on the surrounding area. You may hear from some of them tonight. That committee has also received correspondence from those people as well to be considered as they go through this project. Overall, and it's not limited to this, but topics for review tonight and as part of the committee's charge include topics such as residential, recreation, commercial land use, the status of our new mixed-use district, infrastructure, multimodal and pedestrian connectivity, sustainability, aging in place for older adults, medical services, schools, rezoning opportunities, and potential for new zoning districts. All of these topics have been discussed and reviewed by the committee so far, and they're going to be evaluating those topics as they go forward following this meeting. So with that being said, we can get started. That's a little background on the committee. We've collected all the slips that have come in so far. I'll read the names off in the order that they came in. If I mess up your name, I severely apologize already. I'll do what I can.
So when you come up, please give your name, address for the record. We'll get that. Please direct your comments up to us. We'll take it from there, see how it goes. And
want to talk about sending comments into planning?
Yep. We also obviously have our website set up. You can send in comments through the website. You can send comments through email if you like to planning@penfield.org. We have Facebook, Twitter, any other social media aspects to send in. You can also send in a letter. We take comments well beyond this evening. We'll collect those, gather them together, provide them to the committee for their discussion at future meetings. So.
All right, here we go. First guest of honor, Julie Mitchell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And so I am to say where I live?
Please.
Yes, Julie Mitchell, 27 White Spire Lane.
Thank you.
So I'm just a little confused because I thought we were going to get an overview first, but no?
We did just a little background overview of kind
That's
of
it?
what the committee had talked about. All the meetings to date have been recorded or online, so you can go back and watch the committee discussions. At this point, we're just information gathering tonight, so we're not
Okay.
trying to, let's say, predetermine anything. We're just, this is an opportunity for the public to provide comments to staff, provide comments to the committee. Your thoughts, where do you see Penfield going? What would you like to see? So it's just kind of open for you to share your thoughts and comments with us.
Okay, so yes, thank you. So I want to start with, as not being a member of the committee, I have done some research with the 2010 comprehensive plan, and really my overarching question, and then I have some other details to mention, is I don't see a follow-through with many of the 2010 goals. Some of them are very attractive, and I would say I would like to see them continue. Even the 2008 bicycle safety plan, again, I just, as a resident, I'm not seeing a lot of development with that. Transportation, I wrote down affordable housing within mixed use, transportation, attracting unique businesses. And again, this is coming from my research of the 2010 plan, and I'm just, I'm not seeing those goals being fulfilled. So I hope that that will be taken into consideration, that we could make sure those are followed through, and then also expand upon those, seeing that it's been, a decade. Transportation is huge in terms of the infrastructure matching, or in this case, I am concerned that it's not matching the development that we've seen. And I'm concerned about the empty commercial buildings, and concerned about perhaps maybe a lack of creativity in terms of attracting unique businesses to Penfield, to keep our, some of our unique storefronts, our appeal to the historic background. So I'm concerned about the lack of that follow-through also. And in terms of our schools, I thought that I read the prediction of the enrollment was to stay pretty stable, and that's not the case either. With our increase of development, the schools are at capacity, and that concerns me a lot. And I don't want to suggest additions or new schools, because I really think that this community values what we have, and that smaller in terms of Monroe County identity, and we're able to offer some very unique programs that might get lost in terms of funding if we were to have to expand our schools.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Jeff Burns.
Hi,
Good evening.
how are you guys tonight?
Welcome.
Good, thanks. So I had a few things I was interested in. One is...
Jeff, could you give your name and address, please?
Sure, so it's Jeff Burns, 39 Scarborough Park.
Thank you.
Very interested in the zoning categories that the town has. In the 2010 comprehensive plan, on page 9, there was a future land use concept map that identified areas of Penfield by intended use, and it included several categories, including low density, high density, rural, residential, agriculture, commercial, mixed use, industrial, and recreation sanctuary. And there was a significant portion of land that was identified as recreation sanctuary. However, there's no zoning category for that.
That was not a zoning, it was not a zoning.
I understand, but
it was
those
a
were the
land use.
intended uses,
Yeah.
and...
Yeah, they're two different categories.
Right, but my understanding is that the zoning, though, is the responsibility of a town to designate various zones for different uses of land. And so if we're saying that we're going to designate an area for recreation and sanctuary, then it seems that there should be zoning that would support that as well. When Shadow Pines came up, a lot of people were surprised that was zoned at the time as R120, and it had been a recreational golf course for decades and farmland before that. I'm not quite sure how that became residentially zoned in that time, but I think a lot of people were concerned, and my recollection also was with the Shadow Pines Moratorium Committee and thereafter, that there was instruction even from the town supervisor to be looking at what the ramifications would be for other land in town, including Shadow Lake and Penfield Country Club. So anyways, there's a lot of land that was shown as sanctuary and recreational, and it seems that it would be appropriate for us to have at least discussion of having that zoned in that way so that it's protected in the future, according to what the plan already is saying. Another area I'm interested in is that within the, I think the 2010 comprehensive plan was very well done. It was very well organized, and a lot of great ideas in there. One area that I'd like to see in the next plan is that that there's some guidance for the town to do a financial analysis of the impact of new development in terms of taxes. Again, in the Save Shadow Pines effort, what we found was that at Shadow Pines, there were 255 houses that were proposed to be built there. And even at assuming a very high average price of $450,000 per house, and the houses would have been much less than that likely, that there's no way they would have come anywhere near close to covering the costs of to the community of having the new students and the new infrastructure that would be required in supporting those houses. So what I would propose is that within the plan that there is at least some discussion of or guidance for the town to do such a financial analysis before any residential development is approved, so that the taxpayers know what that cost will be to them, and that a reasonable decision can be made. Another area that I'd be interested in seeing in the plan involves sustainability. That and we all are hearing so much about climate change that's going on, and we have a responsibility as a town to also make our best efforts to reduce our carbon footprint. So I would like to see a category within the town plan for the next 10 years as to what we're going to be doing about that. And while having some solar panels in town is a good idea, I would like to encourage that we make a goal of near zero fossil use in some point in the future, whether it's 10 or 20 years, at least for the town. I mean, in terms of the town itself and the utilization of energy that they're using. I'd also like to see some guidance, something from the town to make an effort to reduce the overuse of fertilizer and insecticide. I think that's something that we can all do, but there could be some incentives that the town can provide, or help guiding people toward other ways of taking care of their yards or the farms and things like that. We're all, again, aware of the terrible algae blooms that are going on everywhere, but it includes our watershed and Lake Ontario. And the analysis is that that fertilizer and insecticides have a lot to do with that, getting into the watershed and over-eutrophying the lake. Another area that I would like to see looked at in the plan would be the quarry in town. The 1966 plan comprehensive plan had called for the quarry to be closed. That was back in 1966. The plan said that that residential areas had been built up around that area, around the quarry. When it was first there, it was out in the country and kind of by itself, but that it was now surrounded by residential land, and that it was no longer an appropriate use. So it's currently kept as a non-conforming use, but when the quarry had begun operations, it did not have an asphalt plant in it, as far as I know, and it was not used for as a distribution point, which it is used as now. So those are not conforming uses going back to the original use of the plant, of the quarry. And I'm not looking to see anything done dramatically with that, but I think that it's certainly something that should be part of the plan, is to look at the pros and cons, what the financial consequences would be, pro and con, and what the potential benefits would be there. As we know, in the plans for the quarry, when it's reclaimed, includes stated right from the quarry company that this would become a large recreational lake. And that's the kind of thing that should be planned well in advance, and I think it's incumbent on us to have that within the comprehensive plan as to creating what the potential timeline would be for that and what would be required to plan appropriately for it, what the potential impact would be on the town. So anyways, that's a lot right there, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bob Peterson?
Bob Peterson, 1931 Clark Road.
Evening, Bob.
Been a resident 55 years, and very proud to be a resident of Penfield, very happy. My topic, and it's a little awkward, I'd like to be addressing the members of the committee, and first of all to say thank you to all of you for the time and effort you're putting into this. Having been a member of both the Moratorium Committee and the Shadow Pine Land Use Committee, I know the amount of time and energy it takes to really do a good job being a committee member, and I thank you for that. The topic I have, and Jeff has mentioned some of it, the comprehensive plan in 2010 had a very significant chart in there. It showed in a couple of places within the plan, and it's the future land use concept map. And if you notice, all the land west of 250 is where most of the development has taken place, and that's, I guess that's because we have sewers there. And there's a lot of significant recreational sanctuary land in this area that's west of Route 250, and I feel very strongly that that needs to be protected, the recreational and sanctuary sites we have. And I've gone through and I've itemized or listed about 19 recreational or sanctuary sites that I feel need zoning protection, and I think the comprehensive plan is the place to make that happen. The comprehensive plan is the foundation for any zoning changes or administration of zoning. It gives you the basis, the legal right to make those changes. And I think it's time we propose that. I'm asking the committee to think seriously about, as part of their work, to ask the town to develop an open space zoning ordinance for recreational and sanctuary use to protect those sites we have. We have at least 19 sites in the western, well, 18 out of 19. There's one site that's, what is it, Sherwood Park is on the other side of 250, but I would like to see these.
It's okay.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you can give these to the members of the committee. I've listed a total of 19 sites, and one of them, Sherwood Fields, is east of 250. And why I'm emphasizing that, the pressure of development is happening on the western part of the town of Penfield. That's where we have the sewers. And if we go back to the 2010 plan, there was seen a need for a mixed-use development that has been proposed on 250 near Atlantic. And since you didn't have a zoning ordinance for mixed use, the 210 plan made that an action item, stipulated as an action item. And the town did indeed produce a zoning ordinance for mixed use. Since 2010, on the west side of Penfield, there's been almost 1,000 apartment units or high-density residential units being either developed or proposed, and that includes a couple of hundred apartments up at Ellison Heights, 400 and something going in or planned down at already built or going in down in LaSalle's Landing. And then I'm not sure how many, maybe 400 proposed up in the mixed-use area of Atlantic and 250. So there's been a lot of development going on the west side, and I'm just thinking it's important to protect those assets, those recreational assets that we have. And when you look at the list, we have Hip Brook, a nature preserve owned by the Genesee Land Trust. It's zoned R120 for half-acre homes. Ellison Park is owned by Monroe County, R120, half-acre homes. We've got the athletic fields that the school owns, R115 or R120. We've got the golf courses, also zoned for residential. We've got the quarry, which is zoned, I don't know how that happens, R120, how you're going to build houses in a quarry, but that's going to become a lake. But that's what our zoning says is allowable there. The point is that it doesn't make sense, and it can be expensive. It cost us, the town, $3.6 million to protect Shadow Pines when it came on the market. So the current use can easily change. And if the comprehensive plan says it ought to be recreational or sanctuary, the only way you can ensure that is to have a zoning ordinance. So I'm asking that the committee take some significant action to call for a recreational or sanctuary use and open space zoning ordinance to be created and then applied to protect those significant recreational assets that the town now has, especially because they're in this area of the town where all the development is taking place. And that's what I'm asking, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Paul Christopher.
My name is Paul Christopher. I live at 2 Mount View Crescent. I also own 2 pieces of property, 1179 and 1177 Bay Road. Right now, it is zoned residential. We have, to the south of us, is commercial. I think this is the property here. Hopefully I won't knock your sign down.
Oh, it's not going anywhere.
Clipped at the top, should be good.
So these are the 2 pieces of property that I own right now. And right next to it, you can see that there is a significant, there's a a nail salon or hair shop that's there right next to us now that goes at just the bordering of 1179. And these are two pieces of property, both residential. So what I guess I'm asking for is to see if we can change the zoning on these from a residential to a multi-residential property, actually take them and put them into one tax number so that we can develop this and put just a couple of doubles on there. There's already a double on there now, because otherwise I just don't see any use for the property. So I'm asking for the committee to consider changing the zoning to multi-residential on this property.
Okay, thank you. We'll add that to the list for the committee to consider.
And I think it would be a good transition from your commercial to your residential.
And I will let you know, Paul, that the committee did, during its tour of the town, take a look at that property. We just haven't discussed it to this point in time. We're waiting for the input coming in from the public for this meeting. And we will discuss it at a future meeting.
Oh, okay. And then I'll just hear back from you.
We will make you aware of that meeting so that you have the courtesy to come in and listen to
Okay.
this.
Do you have any questions at all?
No, it's pretty straightforward, and as I say, we are familiar with that property.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you
Thank you.
for coming.
Masut Vardar?
Good evening. My name is Masud Vardar, 610 Vanessa Drive in Webster. And the property I wanted to reference was, I believe, 1453 Empire Boulevard. The corridor is mostly the LaSalle district, LaSalle Landing. And the property I'm referencing is partly that and partly not, unfortunately. So I'm asking the committee to consider uniting that to one, the LaSalle district, because it just seems to definitely make sense with the rest of the corridor, rest of the properties, and in essence, to hopefully give us a chance to do something with the property that is productive to the town. And it definitely makes sense, and it's a smooth transition to everything else. Nothing has been decided, obviously, on our end, but something that seems to does make sense is potentially townhomes, nice townhomes. That is one thought. But zoning consistently for the entire district, or the corridor, is why I wanted to stop by and give my 2 cents.
So what would your preferred zoning be? TH, our townhouse zoning district? I don't know if you've had a chance to look at our zoning to know
The
what
LaSalle,
specifically.
LaSalle Landing, that's a district, I think, or the zoning, I think, that makes sense for just combining it, because portion of the property is and the other portion is not.
Yeah.
So having it combined as one for the LaSalle district, that's
Okay.
what I would like to
Okay,
honestly
just
say.
wanted to clarify that, as
Yes.
whether you were requesting TH or something different, or all LLD.
No, not necessarily, just, yeah,
Okay,
just LaSalle, I think.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Bob Reed?
Good evening. Bob Reed, 275 Parkview Drive. How many members of the committee are there?
That's
a good question. I think there were 12.
12 members, I believe.
Okay. And they're-
Many of them are here this evening.
Many of them are here. They're volunteers for the most
Yes,
part?
they are.
Yeah.
They're all
Well,
volunteers.
I wanted to agree with Mr. Peterson on that and other things, to say thank you for all the time that's been put in on this, especially for the volunteers. I might not agree with all of the conclusions that you come to, but I know that anyone who's volunteered to be on this committee has an interest in the future of the town of Penfield, as we all do. I also want to agree with Mr. Peterson that the pace of development west of 250 has been enormous, and the loss of critical properties has also been enormous, in my opinion. We lost 16 acres or so on Creek Street, a beautiful forest that now has been totally deforested, plowed up, and is being converted into a number of very nice homes. We have so many, we have so much open land in Penfield where you could put houses. It seems kind of sad to lose a nice hunk of woodland like that. I understand that people who own property want to make something of it, but the future of Penfield is also involved, you know, and important properties need to be protected. I see the proliferation of huge apartment complexes, and that's a major shift. You know, it used to be that developers in Penfield made a buck by building houses and selling it to you, making their money that way, and then Penfield got a homeowner who cared about the town. Now we see developers wanting to create an infinite income stream for generations, and what Penfield gets is renters who are not as connected and involved with the town. So we have 9 huge buildings at Water's Edge, a Morgan project, and a plan for a 10th one that the Daniellis want to put on land adjacent to the bay. We have very little bayfront. We have plans from Dr. Howitt across the road above Agway for another apartment complex. We have the plan, the mixed-use plan for 250 and Atlantic Avenue. We have Ellison Heights. I think a lot of these are, especially Ellison Heights and Water's Edge, too big, out of scale for the location, on a terrible place to put such a development. But I don't think our zoning people on the zoning board and the planning board have the tools to say no to developments that are unwise for the future of Penfield. Now, I'm not saying that those are necessarily unwise, but I think that we have to look to the future and what the town will be like. That's what the 2020 Commission is about, obviously. And these changes, I don't think are all for the best. Recently, we learned that the owner of Glendevere's, who has a non-conforming use permit to operate his party house, has received permission to deforest a hill on his property that's adjacent to the Ellison wetlands and then completely remove the hill to expand a non-conforming use which is not supposed to be expandable. I think that the various committees involved had second thoughts about that project and probably some of the others, but I don't think they have the tools to say no. I think someone's behind them saying, you can't say no to developers. We have to let them do with the land what they want to do with it. But it's also our land in a larger sense. We have to live with it for generation after generation. And so I'd like to see some stronger controls, and I'd like to see a second look at this proliferation of huge apartment complexes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mindy McLaren?
Good evening.
Hi. I'm Mindy McLaren. I live at 1724 5 Mile Line Road. Given that the comprehensive plan can be tailored to highlight aspects of a municipality that may be unique, I'd like to see the objective of the 2020 comp plan be to foster interest in Penfield's historic and natural attractions, as well as the care of these places so that they exist for future generations. Penfield can be more than 441 and an inordinate amount of dental offices by supporting the idea that it is a destination in which people can enjoy the great outdoors or learn about our local history. As my friends have said, I would like to see additional zoning categories, such as recreational, so we don't end up with another situation such as Shadow Pines or with a $10 million single-family home that was supposed to be mixed use. As it relates to Shadow Pines, I believe that that entire area encompassing Shadow Lake, the quarry, and Shadow Pines should be designated as a special zoning district to prepare for the lake that will eventually be there. I would like to see more effort go into the caring of the Clark House and the barn. Those historic structures are part of Penfield's legacy, and they deserve better care from us. I would like to see sidewalks completed. This will increase walk and bikeability, as well as ensure a safer experience for those activities. I think that we need a formal plan in place for the Arundecoit Bay area, especially LaSalle's Landing, rather than having 4-story apartment buildings that block the view, increase traffic, displace wildlife, and pollute the bay. Done right, that area could be a beautiful natural and historical draw for visitors and residents. Any plan for that area has to take into account the flooding that severely impacts businesses located on both sides of Empire Boulevard. I would like to see Penfield's historic preservation ordinances held to a higher standard so that we don't lose the character that remains at our Four Corners and in other areas of town. For example, the house on 250 in Atlantic, it's an old, possible Wells-built home, and I think that could have been included and should have been proposed to be included in the mixed-use district that's going in there, instead of being demolished. I'd like to see Penfield become a climate-smart community through the DEC, as are Brighton, Brockport, Arundecoit, Williamson, and Sodus. As a town on Arundecoit Bay, we have to be proactive in dealing with the effects of a changing climate. We also I'd like to see us pass community choice aggregation legislation like Brighton, Pittsford, Arundecoit, and Brockport have done. And I think that we need to create a concrete pesticide policy so that these poisons are not allowed to be used on public property any longer. I see this next comp plan as a great opportunity to focus on the unique aspects of Penfield so that we can create a fuller, more well-rounded identity for our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alice Pentland.
I'm Alice Pentland, 24 Old Westfall Drive, and I'm happy to have an opportunity to speak to the committee, and also want to thank those who volunteered over time. I think it's a big undertaking trying to shepherd a community into the future and to take into account the opinions of so many diverse people. And I know there will be lots of conflict about trying to make it go forward, but I have to add my thoughts in support of many of the speakers already. I think that we want to try and make LaSalle's Landing a place that is a recreational zone. We have enough obstructing of the view with apartments. I think its purpose was to allow people to enjoy the waterfront. We don't have a lot of waterfront, and it's also an entryway for wildlife flying through in the springtime and in the fall to get up into the bay. It's important to have that preserved and not just made into more apartments. There's a lot of other utility that we can find to help the community enjoy that space. I want to put my voice in support of the creation of recreation and sanctuary zoning. I think that's smart. There's a lot of pressure over time. You know, you have a big concept. You want to conserve a way of life here in Penfield. And there's a lot of individual pressure about, well, we can do this little thing or we could do that little thing and it will be helpful. But unless you have some way of saying, no, these greater goals of keeping wildlife and outdoor space available and recreation are important. We need zoning to protect it. And I want to support the remarks of people in front of me. I also think traffic concerns are a big problem on Empire Boulevard. And if we throw more apartment buildings into that I just don't see how we're going to go forward without having some terrible accidents. So thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Murray. Murphy. Tim Murphy, sorry.
Just don't call me late for a meal.
The P, the R, I got lost in there.
Yeah, the older I get, the worse my handwriting gets. Tim Murphy, 48 Corral Drive, lived in Penfield for 32 years. Would also like to echo the sentiment of thanking all the people that have contributed to the comprehensive master plan update. We know it's a lot of work. I had 7 points, but now I have 10 that I'd like to share, but I promise to go through them quickly.
5 minutes, we're counting.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll get through it. So first, I took a look at the 2010 Comprehensive Master Plan, and I don't mean to be critical at all. It has a lot of good information and data, but it doesn't look like a plan based on my definition of what a plan is, where you show next steps, specific ownership, milestones, financial impact. So calling it a plan, in my mind, is a little bit of a stretch. And, specifically, I was looking at a page that's near and dear to me. I think it's 112. And on there, it says potential implementation item. Community priority doesn't say, how do we do it or how they got there. Responsible lead party, it has organizations, not people or job descriptions. Potential partners, again, organizations, not job descriptions or people. So getting them a little bit more specific and making it more look like a plan, I think is something you should consider. I also suggest that town leadership, gives us an annual update and calls out specific things in the comprehensive master plan that they're working on. Give us an idea of what the priorities are and who the specific owners are and what are those next steps. Go in the plan, pull those things out. I know the supervisor gives an annual update. Let's have a section on there that looks back at the completed master plan and says this is what we're doing about it. So that was number 2. Number 3, again, section page 112 is something that I actually was part of. Under transportation, expand multimodal networks, sidewalks, trails, and connections. So I was actually the chairperson of the bicycle master plan that we did in 2009 and went into the 2010 plan. And I served on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for 12 years, and there were plenty of opportunities for us since then to look at the plan and do something about it. And honestly, nothing's happened. And that's just kind of an example. I know a lot of these plans get created and then sit on the shelf and wait for an opportunity, whether it's, member item money, or somebody wants to take the initiative, or there's an issue. But again, these plans, a lot of work goes into them, but then when nothing happens against them, or they get updated, it doesn't feel like the efforts are valued. So again, that's my frame of reference. And very, very specific. I heard it said earlier, and I think I talked to Mark about this years ago. Specific idea, widen sidewalks in selected corridors, like from Baird Road, down Whalen Road, up 5 Mile, and down Browncroft to the Bay Trail campus. Say that corridor. I mean, the right-of-way is there. Let's make the sidewalks 6 or 8 feet. Let's make them multi-use so the kids can ride their bicycles and feel safely on there. I mean, I could talk about that for a long time, but every time I go up and down that road, I see the opportunity there. And it would make Penfield unique, and it would encourage a behavior. So that was my 3rd thing. 4th thing, I'd like to encourage the Comprehensive Master Plan to consider reconstituting the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. We were dismissed back in 2012, weren't given good reason. It hasn't come back to life. I could only imagine why. But, it was an important part of the things that happened in Penfield. I mean, the soccer fields that got built here, the Rothfuss Park. I can't take credit for the baseball fields. A lot of good things have happened since then. But again, it was community input. It was a chance to be part of the conversation. So including, or reconstituting the Parks and Rec Advisory Board would be a really good asset for the community. 5, include more space for seniors. Now, I know we're in a difficult spot because we're one of the few communities in the United States that has 2 YMCAs in our border. But we called this out a long time ago is the growing demographic in Penfield is seniors. And they need some more space dedicated, and they have their own unique needs. And I'll just say, how about, on the Baird Road facility, that the library and the rec center and the courts form a U. What about that space on the west side there? maybe we could put something in a future-looking plan that said, hey, we can put X amount of square feet in there for the seniors. Now, I know there's a possible issue with parking, but I'm sure working with the school district, you could find some, some middle ground. So space for seniors. That was number 5. Number 6, as part of some of the plans that were completed 10, 15 years ago, we commissioned Dr. Ed Udd from SUNY Brockport to help us with the Parks and Rec Advisory Master Plan. And one of the things that always stuck with me is one of his findings, that only 17% of the high school students participated in interscholastic sports. 17%. We have some beautiful facilities here in Penfield, and I'm sure the numbers changed somewhat. And I know it didn't include, things that weren't sports. I'm sure a lot of young people have jobs after school and art and drama and the like. But again, only 17%. That's a user community that, the comprehensive master plan should make sure they anticipate. There's been plenty of times when we've been approached about, roller skate rinks, outdoor rinks, those kind of things, non-traditional team sports. Again, if you look back and say, hey, history tells us that there's a big user community of kids that have a need to be active after school, and Penfield, the town of Penfield, could find a way to serve them. 7, I was part of the Shadow Pines Committee, and I won't go into the detail, but I want to encourage what other people have said. But add to the point that we throw terms around pretty loosely, and that's our fault. Open space, recreation sanctuary, green space, parks, land, and they all have kind of different definitions. And I think it's really important that the comprehensive master plan, has our definition of what they are, so that we can all point to that and say, this is what we're referencing, especially if we're going after some kind of zoning category to protect open space, green space, whatever we want to call it, recreation sanctuary. So getting definitions for those things, so again, we can all agree that, this is what that means, because we know parkland has its own connotations and limitations. I'll bet you we know that, but not too many other people realize what that means. These are the things I wrote down when I was listening, affordable housing, or working class housing, I believe it's called. I know there's an initiative by St. Joe's, and I don't think there's anybody here tonight representing them, but all over the country, affordable housing or working class housing is a big thing. There's plenty of gentrification going around here where people are being displaced, and where do they go? And we know some of the history in Penfield with, Willow Ponds and the town being sued many years ago, and that was part of the answer. Well, I think that might be coming back at us again. The people that are being displaced in other parts of our community are looking for places to live. I don't know what the answer is, but we should try to acknowledge that, maybe get ahead of it, and maybe have some answers for it looking forward. So I've retired from Thermo Fisher Scientific down at Panorama Plaza, but I still have plenty of friends here, and something that I wanted to mention that I thought of is the flooding there. We spent lots of money on flood insurance, and we had to do a lot of mitigation steps. And I know I asked a number of times, but I think it deserves to come up because it's the largest employer in town, I believe. Honey Creek, Allen's Creek, there was a time when it was pointed to the Army Corps of Engineers had to come up with a plan to put dikes, I think was the right term. I don't know where that stands. We're waiting for the next event. I worked there for 14 years, and we had 2 flood events in a 100-year floodplain. So, making sure that's a priority. There's a lot of people that live and work in our community go down there, and God forbid, again, all that water finds its way back down to Panorama Plaza, and we get flooded out. And then imagine, again, corporate executives makes decisions based on, downtime and productivity and all those kind of things. But let me just come back to it. Flood management in Panorama Plaza, I think, should be something very specifically called out, because again, consider your largest employer is down there. And I already covered the definition. So those are my points. Did I make it in 5 minutes? Almost.
About that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Chris Chauvin?
Hello, my name is Christopher Chauvin. I live at 24 Old Westfall Drive, right there. And when I moved to here 20 years ago, I was shown a plan for LaSalle's Landing, LaSalle's Landing development. And it included a wonderful opportunity for some commercial development and some residential development and a lot of recreational access. And since then, what we've seen is we've seen a lot of commercial development. And I'm dissatisfied with the adherence to the plan. So I'm a little skeptical that any plan that gets put forward is actually going to be followed, depending on the amount of money and influence that's brought in by developers who think they can make a lot of money and leave the area. Penfield has tremendous resources, more so than some of the other bedroom communities surrounding Rochester. You only look at these walls, and you can see that what we have is we have a beautiful community situated right next to one of the great resources of the world, a great freshwater lake. We have a lot of wildlife that comes through and enters this, and that is worth protecting. We had bald eagles. We've had all kinds of animals come through that are really important, and it's not just a place to make money and move on. It's a place where we can live and thrive and survive and have a beautiful community. And I think that we have to plan for development, and I'm glad everybody's doing this, but we also have to take into account that this is a resource that needs to be protected. So please include all of any resources that can protect the land and protect the wildlife and protect the resources that we citizens have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak yet that would like to speak?
Good evening. Mel Callan, 1410 Harris Road. I live on the east side of 250, and so I strongly recommend that the committee consider keeping that as it is a primary agricultural area. I know the zoning has been changed from, I believe, 2 acres, from 5 acres down to 2 acres now. No, it's still 5 acres?
It was always, it was half acre till 1981, and that was converted to 2 acres after that, and it's remained that since.
Okay, because I know some of the homes there have much more than 2 acres.
Well, you can build on larger lots,
right.
yes, but it's always been 2 acres.
But it's where a lot of our farming is done, and I think that contributes to the beauty of Penfield. We have an agricultural farming section of town and a more developed town, which I would agree with many of the comments that have already been made, to really look at the amount of development that we're having and the implication in so many areas with the schools, with the transportation. But the east side of Penfield really is a beautiful area, and we'd like to keep that in the agricultural mode that it has been in, and open space. And I think that's what really draws many people to Penfield, is the diversity of the landscape in the entire town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to add on to, or have second thoughts to what they said earlier? Going once, twice? Okay.
I say, this is not the end of the conversation. This was just one opportunity for input tonight, to have the public information meeting. Obviously, as said earlier, we have opportunities on the website, those watching at home. Hopefully, we'll get additional input after this. Submit on the website, email planning@penfield.org, social media, letters, whatever. Please provide comments to our committee. Thank you to our committee members for coming here tonight, listening in. Thank you for, again, volunteering, echoing the comments from the group tonight. Thank you all for your input and comments. Obviously, we're taking very good notes. We'll compile those as well as the comments received, pass it along to the committee, and then we'll have further conversation moving ahead with the committee. I think we've set trying to at least collect all the information by October 11th. So Friday, October 11th, we've set as kind of a deadline just to have an endpoint to get people to get their comments in. The committee's next meeting is scheduled for October 1st. We'll be here 7 o'clock back of the room. It's a discussion for the committee. Obviously, anybody is always welcome to watch, listen in, hear the conversation. The committee, I think, will just kind of start to digest what we heard tonight, as well as what was submitted online And then obviously the committee will then start to dive in and have deeper conversations and, start to, get into the writing of the document and reviewing properties and whatnot as we move forward from there.
But just to echo Mark's thoughts, the primary form of public comments is certainly our website. Right on the homepage is a link to public comments for the 2020 comp plan for anybody who's watching and wasn't able to attend today, or anyone you know in the audience, any friends or family members that wasn't able to come. Please direct them to the website to give us those public comments, and we'll get those to our committee members.
Pretty much it.
Well, thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate the input. More to follow.
Thank you.